Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so today we are diving into a really deep, critical explainer of a totally fascinating modern take on ancient wisdom. We're looking at Darius Foroux's Focus on What Matters. And listen, we are not just skimming the surface here. We're going to really dissect the core thesis, the big ideas, the structure, and look at exactly how these classic Stoic principles apply directly to our very loud, very chaotic modern world.
Let me ask you something. Do you ever wake up and, with the absolute first ray of sunlight, your brain is just already bombarded? You haven't even gotten out of bed yet, right? But you're already stressing about the day's work, other people's expectations, what you're supposed to post on social media, or who you still need to text back. It creates this immense mental pressure that can literally ruin your mood before the day even officially begins. The source material points out that we are all so desperately chasing validation in a world that is just full of digital noise. And man, it is exhausting.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, modern noise and stoicism. Then, the dichotomy of control. After that, we'll look at the book's unique structure. Then, attention, our real wealth. And finally, freedom from regret and fear.
All right, Section 1, Modern Noise and Stoicism. So the entire foundational thesis of Foroux's work relies on this really simple but absolutely profound definition, the dichotomy of control. This is an ancient Stoic principle, and it basically says that peace and happiness are only possible when we focus entirely on what is actually in our power and completely let go of literally everything else. The source points out that we lose our inner peace precisely because we are constantly trying to control the uncontrollable. Think about it. When you tie your happiness to external things, you are basically handing the keys to your happiness straight over to someone else.
It all comes down to a super stark contrast. On one hand, you have what we actually control, right? Our actions, our intentions, and our effort. But on the other hand, you have what is completely out of our control. Someone else's reaction, the final result of a job interview, or even just the weather. Foroux uses some really great modern examples here. Like if you post a photo on social media, your intention is entirely in your control. But how many likes it gets, or if someone leaves a random mean comment, totally out of your control. Same with the job interview. You control your prep, but the interviewer's mood, out of your hands. Worrying about that stuff is just unnecessarily upsetting yourself. If it rains on your way to an event, you obviously can't control the rain, but hey, you can control popping open an umbrella and just enjoying the walk.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this: detach from the outcome and attach to the process. When you shift your mindset to focus entirely on your own controllable actions, this really amazing thing happens. You actually build profound confidence. Why? Because every single result, whether it's a huge success or a so-called failure, just becomes a learning opportunity. You grow, you learn, you mature. And according to the source, that is what real, genuine success actually looks like.
Moving right along, Section 2, the book's unique structure. Rather than hitting you over the head with some heavy, dense philosophical textbook, Foroux actually structures this as a series of short 2 to 4 page letters. And they explore highly relatable themes. We're talking fear, overthinking, comparison, chasing validation, and letting go. The real beauty here is the tone. The source material notes that reading these feels exactly like a good friend is just gently explaining things to you, or like you're reading the honest whispers of your own heart written out on paper. It kind of acts as a form of self-meditation.
And what makes this format so brilliant is its totally nonlinear, repeatable nature. There is absolutely no strict rules saying you have to read it from start to finish. You just grab the letter you need on the exact day you need it. If you're struggling with comparing yourself to others today, well, you read that letter. And since our healing and growth are definitely not linear, you can return to these exact same letters weeks later and they'll reveal completely new meanings depending on what you're currently going through. It's very much like how returning to your breath in meditation feels a little bit different every single day.
Okay, let's look at Section 3, attention, our real wealth.
The source material makes a really bold claim here, and it is incredibly relevant for all of us right now. Attention is today's ultimate currency. I mean, just think about it for a second. Every single platform, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, they are all competing fiercely for your attention. And when our attention is constantly divided, when we're bouncing from tab to tab every 2 minutes, the cost is subtle, but it is devastating. It results in scattered thoughts, half-finished work, and just this perpetual state of dissatisfaction. Look, you wouldn't leave your life savings unlocked, right? So why are we not consciously guarding our attention in that exact same way?
Now, this next point is arguably the absolute most profound realization from this entire section. The quote is, "We use distraction to escape discomfort, not boredom."
We almost always think we grab our phones just because a task is boring, right? But the source argues we actually reach for our feeds to avoid uncomfortable, anxious, or challenging emotions. It's just a temporary emotional escape hatch. But in the long term, constantly fleeing that discomfort severely weakens our capacity to focus and actually grow. And this builds directly into how we structure our daily routines. On one hand, we have shallow work. That's the switching tabs, answering endless notifications, and kind of confusing being busy with actually being productive. On the other hand, we have deep work. This requires focus, it requires silence, and crucially, it requires tolerating boredom. The source points out that genuine creativity and the very best ideas actually come from that silence. When we tolerate the initial discomfort of being bored without instantly reaching for distraction, that boredom magically transforms into clarity and inspiration. You really have to intentionally design your day to protect that deep work.
All right, on to our final segment, Section 4, Freedom from Regret and Fear. Let's start with regret. We usually just think of it as feeling guilty about the past, you know? But Foroux reframes it so beautifully here. Regret is actually a signal that our actions simply do not match our values. It is vital, crucial feedback. It's essentially a mirror showing us exactly where we compromised our own inner truth just to meet someone else's standards or expectations. And the hard truth is, if you don't clearly define your own values, you're going to end up living by someone else's. And that is a guaranteed recipe for long-term regret.
And then, of course, there is fear. Is it an enemy, or is it actually a guide? Well, the Stoic perspective highlighted in the text says that fear is actually a compass. It usually appears exactly in the places where we have the absolute most potential for growth and meaning. If you are terrified of speaking up or starting that big new project, it's usually because stepping out of your comfort zone is required. Fear isn't there to stop you. It's a flashing signal that you are about to do something that truly genuinely matters.
So, how do we actually handle it? Well, the source lays out these really actionable Stoic steps. Step 1, observe the fear without suppressing it. Just look at it. Step 2, talk to it. Literally ask it, what are you trying to show me? And step 3, take virtuous action. And virtuous action just means doing the courageous, honest thing, even when you are scared out of your mind. The key insight here is that fear paralyzes, but action freezes fear. Taking even the absolute smallest courageous step immediately loosens fear's grip on you.
What's really fascinating here is how Foroux actually categorizes fear. On one side, you have logical fear, like a fear of a blazing fire or a traffic accident. That's good. That keeps you safe. But on the other side, you have psychological fear, the fear of someone else's opinion, the fear of judgment, or the fear of failure. The source reminds us that psychological fears are mostly just imaginary stories we write in our own minds. We literally exhaust ourselves creating these worst-case scenarios about people judging us, when in reality, most people are entirely busy worrying about their own thoughts.
We're wrapping up the somatic breakdown with a stark, totally unignorable truth. Short-term discomfort is far, far better than long-term regret. Look, dodging a difficult conversation or avoiding a bold decision might save you from that short-term fear right now, but it is planting the seeds for lifelong silent regret. Don't be afraid of the temporary discomfort of facing your fears, because that exact discomfort is what builds your long-term strength. I want to leave you with this final, really provocative thought to spark some real self-reflection today. Are you doing what truly matters to you, or are you just living on autopilot, reacting to all the noise? Take a moment today to just pause, take a breath, and align your actions with your true values. If you found this deep dive helpful and it gave you some clarity today, please make sure to like this explainer and subscribe to the channel so we can keep bringing you these critical reviews. Thank you so much for learning with us, and I'll catch you in the next one.